Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, as you can see, my charging port door has its trim piece missing. I was trying to close this door earlier today. Originally, the locking mechanism that prevents it from opening when the vehicle's locked did not want to let it close because I had the vehicle charging and locked, and when I hit the unlock button, the locking mechanism did not, I guess, fully unlock to allow this to click in so that way it can be locked. And when I was trying to push on it, hold on a minute, this piece right here just came off. So as you can see, this is how it goes on. I don't see anything broken, no broken clips, so that's good. I have a service appointment for an unrelated issue Tuesday, 2 days from today. So I'm just going to leave that piece in the back and let them deal with it. I don't want to potentially break anything. But I did notice that when that piece was on, it was a little, there was a bit of a gap here. So on this side, there wasn't much clearance between this panel and then the trim piece that came off. But yeah, and that was the only reason that was even a problem was because the locking mechanism here was actually broken and I had to take it in and get it fixed. They had to order a part. But now my charging door locks because previously this would open and close even while the vehicle is locked, which I don't need people opening that because they don't own the car. But yeah, I have a service appointment on Tuesday because last week on Wednesday I was reversing into a parking spot when I went to lunch. And upon putting the vehicle in reverse, I noticed that there was a black screen of death where the camera display should be. And then shortly after that, I got 2 warning messages on my dashboard. One saying that my exit warning was malfunctioning, and then my parking sensor malfunction light also came on, saying that the parking sensors were currently unavailable. Or no, wait, exit malfunction currently unavailable. Exit warning currently unavailable. Yellow triangle came on, and then parking sensor malfunction. I had it backwards, but you get what I'm saying. I've come to realize in the time I've owned this car, which is 1 year and 2 months, that it seems like a lot of these issues that are coming up are unfixable. Like, we're talking issues with the clock, time and date, and the center console. Sometimes I've turned this car on and the clock was not displaying the correct time, but yet the clock in the driver's display was. In addition, it would show a calendar date from 1970, as well as the clock being frozen. So meaning whatever time it's displaying when you turned it on, it would not tick. So it would not change from that, but the driver's display one worked just fine. So I mean, I took it in for this last year, and so far there's been no fix for that. A lot of these other issues I've found with the car have come back as we couldn't find the problem, and I'm guessing that that's probably going to be the case when I bring it in Tuesday, but hopefully not. I took pictures of all the warning lights and the black screen of death, so I'm hoping they can maybe reprogram the MMI and that will fix it. But you know, I mean, I'm glad this is still under warranty, but a lot of good that does when the dealer isn't really doing much of anything to fix these issues. I mean, I understand that it might be hard to replicate the issues if they're just sporadic and not constant, But still, I mean, that shouldn't happen on a 2022 vehicle. It's ridiculous that they aren't making cars like they used to. And this is my mom's 2017 GLC300. It has just under 74,000 miles. We've owned it for 9 years, and we really haven't had too many issues with it. Yes, we had the check engine light on this car come on 3 times in 1 year, 2021. But aside from that, the only sporadic thing that I've noticed, and this happened 2 times in the time we've owned it, is the service parking brake light came on after turning off the vehicle. But the first time that came on, we took it to the dealer. They did an advanced code scan. They found the code, and they said there was nothing wrong with the parking brake, but at least they found the problem that caused the code to come on. We had that again. That time we did not take it to the dealer because it was out of warranty, and we were going to a shop instead. But that was before we made the decision to go back to the dealer for service work. But aside from that, you know, we haven't really had that many issues with this car in comparison to this one, which just goes to show you, you know, during COVID-19, which is when that car was built, this is being a 2022 model year car, 2023 is when the pandemic ended. The build quality of these vehicles went down substantially, and it was because of chip shortages and whatnot. So I do stand behind my conclusion that they don't make cars like they used to for that reason. And then there's also one other issue with the first model year of a vehicle being the most problematic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 2021's the first year of these, if not 22. So it could be I have a first model year car, but I got a good deal on it. Now, as far as plans for this car goes, we are thinking about possibly selling it next year after having owned it for 10 years. But, you know, this car has actually been quite reliable. I mean, I've seen GLC owners complain of the lack of reliability, but we've gotten very lucky. We actually imported this car from Boston, Massachusetts. We had it shipped here, and it was my mom's Christmas present in December of 2016, and she has loved it ever since. And the funny thing is, there are still some things on this car that even after 9 years of ownership, she still does not know how to operate. Which, that brings me to my next point. The replacement car for this will most likely be another Mercedes, and I'm trying to get her to go electric because I know how much she dislikes pumping gas. So, right now, since I'm still living with my parents, I go get the gas every Sunday for both of these cars. But the reality is I'm not going to be around forever. And when I'm gone, if Mom's still driving a gas car, that means either she or Dad has to get the gas. And, you know, she has talked to me many times about how much she doesn't like pumping fuel because it stinks and those fumes are very toxic. And I understand that because prolonged exposure to those fumes can be deadly. So I recommended to her to switch to maybe an EQE or EQS, which that's why we test drove an EQS SUV last year. And yes, I made a few videos with that, or yes, I made a video with that car. However, just yesterday, my father and I went to the Mercedes dealer because they had an EQE SUV for sale. We test drove that. I have a POV video of that. Probably will have that uploaded tomorrow. we both thought it was an amazing car, and I liked it even better than my Q4. So when the time comes for me to get rid of this, I probably won't go with another Audi. I'll probably go Mercedes. I feel like Mercedes-Benz has better customer service than Audi, at least in this area, because there have been some times where I've taken this car in, and this most recent time I was promised a loaner by a service advisor. I go in, I get a different service advisor, and he has me wait. So, just goes to show you, you know, one service advisor might promise you something, another one might not hold true to that one other service provider's promise. But every time we've taken this to the dealer, they've always given us a loaner, unless it was like a quick in and out service for like wiper blades and whatnot, because obviously that's a simple 2-minute install. But you know, even for like the service A, they usually give us a loaner. The only exception is if they don't have any, but they have 50 loaners, so that's pretty much a non-issue. During COVID-19, many dealers, thankfully not the Mercedes dealer we go to, had an issue keeping loaners, and a lot of them still have loaner back orders for 2 weeks to a month, including the Ford dealer my father got his previous car serviced at, which was in Naperville. My brother drives that car now. But as far as other things go, you know, this has been a very good car. It's never had a fluid leak of any kind. And it's never left us stranded in the middle of nowhere. So whoever buys this car next year is going to get a great car. Doesn't even have 100,000 miles on it. And I really don't know what else to say, because with Mercedes-Benz being the first ever manufacturer to build a car back in 1885, you really can't go wrong as long as you buy the right model of Mercedes, because I know the CLAs and GLAs are not that good, but even they have the newer technology which makes them better than the first generation CLA and GLA. But yeah, going back to the EQE and EQS, when my mom test drove the EQS last year, she thought it was a little too big for her liking. She liked the car, don't get me wrong, and she liked all of its technology and its range and power. However, I then suggested that because she thinks the EQS was too big, that she try out the EQE. Well, she didn't have time to test drive it yesterday, so my father and I went. We both thought it was a great car, and we parked it next to this car, and it was only marginally bigger than this car. So, smaller than the GLE, but slightly bigger than the GLC. And the EQE is also wider than the GLC. But the nice thing about the EQE is that it's fully electric. It doesn't use any fuel, has good power, and we have a 240 volt level 2 charger. So pretty much the only change we would need to make if we got an EQE next year is this car would have to be parked here, and then Mom's car would be parked here, which, oddly enough, before I ever started YouTube, that was how they were parking their cars beforehand. Whatever, I mean, because many years ago, my mom drove a 2003 Honda Odyssey, and that car lasted 10 years. Then she had a Mini Countryman for 4 years. I do have videos of that, back when this channel was pretty much brand new. And then she replaced it with this, which we've owned this nearly 10 years, so it's lasted just as long as the Honda Odyssey. And the Honda Odyssey, it had its transmission croak on it, because during the final drive to the Mini dealership my dad took it to, the transmission went into emergency mode and he only had second and reverse gear. So even though he could have shifted that transmission manually, it would not, the electronics would not let it go beyond second gear. So, yeah, it's funny because I remember the day where he finally drove that car to sell it, and the transmission was working just fine then. However, the maintenance required light would flash for a few times when turning the ignition on. I didn't know what that meant. However, I remember my father telling me that the transmission went into emergency mode on his trip to the Mini dealer, which was kind of funny to think about, but, you know, I thought he was coming home with a new Odyssey that day. Nope. He came home with a Mini Countryman because, I mean, let's face it, at the time, you know, I was 13 years old, and my brother was, my brother was 9, so we were old enough to the point where my parents did not need a minivan anymore, because it's really helpful for when you have small children, but when you have, children in their teens or tweens, then you really don't need a minivan anymore. So it was sad to see that van go, and I didn't really care for the Mini all that much at first, but when I started to drive, I did find that car somewhat fun to drive, even though it didn't have a manual transmission. But yeah, sometimes I even had dreams that we still had that van, and it was like one of the best cars we've ever owned, because we had so many road trips in that car. We got it up to 120,000 miles, I believe, before the transmission failed. Because it had a 5-speed automatic. And supposedly that generation of Honda Odyssey had issues with the transmission. So it wasn't just our car that had that issue. But I'm glad that when it finally did start to fail, we were just about ready to sell it anyway. So I'd say we got lucky there. But anyway, back to the future. So next year, Mercedes is planning to discontinue the EQE, so hopefully we'll see better deals on that model of car next year. Plus, the current EVs depreciate like you wouldn't believe. So there's the depreciation plus the discontinuation of the EQE altogether. So that's probably going to bring the price point down to something that's more manageable for us. Because the list price for the EQE we test drove, which was a 2025 model, and it was a former loaner car, not even 1,000 miles on it, was about $70,000 pre-tax. They appraised this car. They wanted to give us just over $13,000 for this. So that would have brought the total to like $58,000, I want to say post-tax. But, you know, we really weren't in the position to buy a car yesterday, simply because, you know, my brother, he had just graduated from college this summer, and we were paying for his apartment and tuition, so that gets expensive. And so, you know, that money that you might have had for a car goes to college. I mean, that is important, because life's hard, college is hard, but so is life without a degree. And my brother started his new job the same day I started mine, which was last Wednesday. I went back to being a school bus driver. So far, I've loved every minute of my new job. And, you know, hopefully all goes well until I can get into the elevator industry, which could be as early as February of next year, when the respective NEIEP recruitment opens up. But yeah, I'll definitely update you guys on what happens post-service visit. I'm sure they'll be able to get the panel back on, no problem. It looks like it just slides into position, judging by those clips. But, you know, hopefully they can reprogram the MMI. I really hope I don't hear we couldn't find the problem, because that has seemed to be the case pretty much every time with this car. Like, you might remember I made a video last winter where this wheel was seized because the parking brake was frozen. So the right-hand side parking brake was stuck. The left-hand side unjammed itself. It was the dead of winter. So I was starting from the garage, obviously. There was moisture in the drum brakes that froze. Obviously, because this car doesn't have a parking pawl, you can't park it without the parking brake on. So the only option is to put it in neutral, and then you have to keep the ignition on, because if you turn the ignition off after letting the car be free to roll, it will go back into parking brake all by itself. I've tried it. So for those of you suggesting not to use the parking brake in this car, you can't. I've tried it every which way. There's no park gear in the transmission, which is why the parking brake applies automatically every single time if you don't set it. But, you know, aside from that, I mean, I found that it was ridiculous that they never found a problem, because I see the problem right away, and that is the fact that they decided to use drum brakes on a modern-day Audi, which I really did not expect to have drum brakes when I bought this car, but I do, and that's the reality of it. And I feel like they do get stuck more often than disc brakes when there's moisture, especially when it's freezing temperatures outside. But yeah, I mean, I took it in because the wheel was seized from the parking brake, and then I had a skid mark because obviously, since the brake was locked up, it was dragging the right rear wheel till about halfway through the driveway, and then it finally unjammed itself, because normally when I give it a bit of throttle, it's enough to unstick the brakes, so I'm able to drive off. So yeah, I am pretty much disappointed by that, but you know, that's just how the car was built, from what I gather. I really don't like the fact that they used drum brakes on a car that costs over $50,000 new, but it is what it is. And, you know, with the luck I've had with this car, I'm just glad it's still under CPO warranty, because I've heard E-Trons out of warranty can be pretty expensive to fix. So, yep. Just fuel for thought, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to touch on. Let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned as always. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and peace out.